I was at a small primary school in Sea Point, and my father was a SACS old boy. So he said, okay, I think my sons must go to SACS. So we drove from Sea Point to SACS for 2 years, until we discovered it's easier to move to the southern suburbs and then go to the school by bicycle. So I went to SACS from standard 4, and I think it was Durant's class, and then standard 5, Laidlaw, and my best subjects in junior school was woodwork, because I liked tinkering with my hands. And then when I got to standard 6, Latin was compulsory. And at the end of the year, I got 29% for Latin. And I knew one of 3 things. I wasn't going to be a Latin scholar. I wasn't going to, my crib notes were not good enough, even for the 29%. And the third thing, I either wasn't a good Latin scholar and my crib notes weren't good, so I dropped that. And then Whiteford, who was the headmaster at the time, a couple of times during assembly, he picked out guys, not by name, but just calling them dead cells, of those guys who never played sport in the A or B teams. So I played under 16 C and D rugby. And when I got to matric, I stopped growing and everyone else did. So I wasn't going to play as a 16, 17-year-old against guys like Chris Hugo Hammond and guys that would murray. So I went and played soccer for Marist Brothers in Rondebosch. And I enjoyed my soccer there, even though Whiteford and Patterson spoke about the dead cells. And after school, my last exam, I'll never forget this. My last exam was science. And I walked out the science exam. I don't think I passed it, but I went past the office because there were cardboard boxes outside where you could hand in your old textbooks. I put my textbook down in the box, and Patterson came out and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Sir, I'm handing in my textbook. I don't think I'll ever need a science textbook again." He said, "Just as well, because I wouldn't have allowed you to write another exam because your hair is too long." And those are the last memories I have of high school, telling me my hair is too long and calling me a dead cell. So anyway, after school, I went to the army, and I ended up at Uppington. And I was there for about 7 weeks after basics. And the only guy I knew out of the hundreds of chaps was a chap, Mike Andrews. Mike Andrews was in our matric year, tall and thin, and he was tucked on from morning until evening because he stood out like a sore thumb. Tall, thin guy. I was being short. I hid behind everybody else, so I got away with a bit of stuff. And thereafter, the entire Uppington camp was sent to Walvis Bay. And there we were for 8 months, up and down sand dunes every single day. And then the last 2 months of that year, in 1974, we were in Angola. And after Angola, I came back, and my father said, "Right, you've been in the army, you've had a year to decide what you're going to do." I said, "Well, shit, I don't know what to do. Why don't I become a pharmacist like you?" He said, "All right, we'll have you applied." I said, "No." He said, "Right, let's get in the car. We go down to town." Pharmacy school was behind the city hall. So we pitched up there, went to the office. In those days, there was no cell phones or internet. We were too late to write letters. So we walked into the head of the pharmacy school's office, and the chap said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well," my father said, "Well, my son wants to study pharmacy." And I had hair like that. I'd just come back out of the army office. And he said, "My son wants to study pharmacy." He said, "Well, has he applied?" He said, "No. He's just got back from Angola, Walvis Bay. Here he is." He said, "Well, they're just filling these forms." So we filled in the forms, and he said, "All right, well, you're just in time because lectures start tomorrow." So there we have it. 4 years of pharmacy school in town, and my internship was at Tygerberg Hospital. And it was very interesting year because then I realized, no shit, pharmacy is not for me. I want to study medicine. So I went and applied for medicine, and they said, "Look, you did pharmacies in Cape Town. It's a diploma, although it's recognized in South Africa. It's not a degree. We need you to get a degree." So then I went off to UCT, and I did a BSc in genetics and microbiology for 3 years. And then I applied for medicine, and I got into second year. And all my mates who had studied pharmacy with me, they were driving new cars. They'd left home. They were living in their own flat. And I thought, no, second year, and add another 5. It's just No, I'm sorry. Then I decided not to, and I went to go work for Warner Lambert, which is an American company. Their office was in Deep River. And then after 6 years there, I decided I'm not into corporate business. I'm going to go into IDB, not illicit diamond buying, but into daddy's business, because he had a retail pharmacy. So then I joined my father, and I was there for 29 years until 5 years ago. So at the moment, I'm working at Constantia Pharmacy, and that's basically it. When I was at UCT, during one of my university holidays, I decided to go down the Orange River on one of these canoe trips, which I did, and it was fantastic. When I got back to Cape Town after a week, I got a phone call, and they said, look, Wade, we can see you enjoyed the Orange River immensely. People got on with you very well. Would you like to come down again in your next university holiday? I said, well, I'm a student. I need to earn money. I can't pay for the next trip, but I'd love to go. They said, no. You come down free of charge. All you've got to do is assist. You've got to light the fires for the braai. You've got to pack up afterwards, help the clients, all that type of thing. I said, when is the next trip? So I must have done 7 or 8 of those Orange River canoe trips free of charge. And on one of them, I met my wife to be. We've been married 30 years now. We have 2 sons, and we took them down on our 10th wedding anniversary. And in between all this, I started running. When I was at UCT, I played for the 3rd team soccer, and I also took up running. And in my running career, I've done 23 of the Ultra 2 Oceans Marathon. And this is a dead cell at SACS, which Whiteford had the audacity to mention in assembly. 23 2 Oceans marathons.
You're talking a lot.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's fantastic. Miralist Cabernet 2014. So after the 23 2 Oceans ultra marathons, I've also, because my wife is from Pietermaritzburg, we used to go up every year to visit her parents. And you can see over here, I'll just point it out there, that green little thing there is the permanent number for running 10 Comrades Marathon. Okay. So, and then there's the 14 or 15 Argus cycle tour. So this dead cell hasn't done too bad. Okay. Oh. I never gave it any thought when I was at school. But as the years go by, I begin to realize, yes, possibly. Yeah, we were different and privileged. But at school, no. I didn't fit into the general mix of guys because I was a non-sports. But I had to find my own way through high school. I mean, I played chess at Big Break, and that was it. And I thoroughly enjoyed and rugby until the under 16. But no, I was too small. I went to go play soccer for Marist. I just knew that I wasn't big enough to play contact. I never belonged because I wasn't in the A or B team. And so when I played soccer, I was pretty good at it. And then when I took up running, which is an individual sport, you can run any time of the day. You don't have to mix or gel with other athletes, competitors. You can run by yourself and enjoy yourself. And I did that. And I did that for 23 years. There are none that stood out for good or for bad. No. I remember the names, but there were none that really that I could mix with and say, I'd like to see him again, or I'd like to see her again. None of that. In fact, I didn't like high school. And that affected me when I've got 2. When they went to school, I had very little to do with the school because of my 5 years at SACS. My wife did all school necessary. And I just tagged along because I had to. I was a father. If you weren't one of them, then you weren't part of the whole SACS or what it's doing. They didn't take into account the non-sporting type. So there were guys who were very academic and sport and very academic and non-sporting. I was a middle of the road kind of guy. I just cruised along, went to school because I had to, and I got my. Now my father always said to me, it doesn't matter what happens at school. What is more important is what happens to you after you've left. And I've proved just to catch up with the guys and listen to their stories. I can listen to stories and see where it's coming from. In my 4 or 5 years at pharmacy, I enjoyed that so much more because there was there's no competition amongst the guys. We knew we were there for 4 years and we had to do what we had to do. There was no weekend sporting that you were in the first team or second team. There was no. And my best 3 years were at UCT. I was 5 or 6 years older than everybody else in my class. I remember walking into chemistry first year and Gary Folds was the lecturer. And I was sitting third row from the front, and there's Gary Folds who comes in. He said, I'm Gary Folds, I'm a master's student. And he looked at me, and I could see he was taken aback, and he recognized, and he had to stop and then continue with the lecture. And afterwards, I went to go speak, and then we had a nice discussion. But I didn't enjoy school. No, it was too competitive sports-wise, and I was not a sportsman at school. It was only afterwards when I found that I enjoyed running and the fresh air in the mountains and that.